Welcome to our presentation, Conversations with Men, Co-Creation for Effective Media Practice in Southern Africa, in which we will present a case study that disrupts hierarchy and enables authentic local storytelling and meaningful change through a process of co-creation. My name is Dr. Julia Cain, and I'm here from the University of Cape Town.
Greetings. I am Buka Tanzirai Washington Mwenzva, presenting with my mentor and master supervisor on our recent research undertaking in Southern Africa on a project initiated by a Cape Town-based organization called STEPS in 7 Southern African countries.
Our presentation today will be structured firstly around an introduction to our research, including relevant background and context and making clear our argument. We will then provide a short overview of our research activities and methods, and our primary focus will be on our key findings with specific illustrative examples. Lastly, we will close with our conclusions. For our introductory section, we would like to start with establishing our connection to the research project, as we both come from community development and practice backgrounds that now inform our academic work, and we are consciously bringing a humanizing approach to our research. I will then set out our argument with a short discussion of co-creation as a distinct form of collaboration, as that is a key concept for this presentation. We will follow this with an introduction to the organizations involved in the project upon which our research has focused.
As a development practitioner, I have worked on various community projects with the primary objective of capacitating and empowering young people. In 2018, I joined STEPS, a media advocacy organization. My work at STEPS involved producing participatory videos, conducting facilitator training workshops, as well as monitoring and evaluating the impact of these initiatives. It is through this work as a practitioner that I developed a keen interest in exploring the efficacy of film as a tool for change, which led to my current studies at the University of Cape Town.
For myself, I first came to South Africa in 1995 through a Canadian NGO. I used participatory video exercises as part of the institutional and social development training that I did in rural communities for 7 years. I then pursued my interest in participatory video as part of my PhD on using film and video as tools for social change, and through that work became aware of the STEPS organization. As you can see from our picture here, Booker and I were both very excited to be setting off on our research visits from Cape Town to visit projects at grassroots level in Southern Africa just a few months ago. In Booker's early research process, it was already clear that something interesting was happening within the complex network of relationships behind the Conversations with Men program in Southern Africa. Our impression was that the program had been quite successful, so we wanted to investigate efficacy, but we also knew trying to measure social change or impact is particularly challenging. We thought that a realistic task would be to focus on the role players at the partner organizations with a specific focus on the facilitators that worked at community level. In so doing, we built up a picture of a collaborative process that we argue in this presentation was specifically co-creative. And further, that it was the nature of this co-creative process that contributed significantly to the high levels of ownership of the process at local level and the impact at facilitator and project levels on attitude and behavior change. For now, I just want to establish our working definition of co-creation, drawn very directly from the work of Katerina Sizek and her co-authors of the recent book Collective Wisdom, and also informed by an important panel discussion at Hot Docs Film Festival, moderated by Sizek from the MIT Co-Creation School at the Open Documentary Lab with artist and practitioner Lisa Jackson and Professor Richard Lockman from Toronto Metropolitan University. So, co-creation can be understood as a way of producing knowledge between partners that are equal in terms of power, but who likely have different sets of skills or knowledge. Key is that at the start, no one partner knows or defines what the final product will be. It is co-created. and fundamental to co-creation, particularly from a Global South perspective with its legacy of unequal power relations and benefits, is the concept of reciprocity. And now to STEPS. STEPS is a non-profit media organization based in Cape Town and established in 2000. Its primary objective is to promote social justice and human rights through media, primarily by using documentary film as a tool for social change. STEP's first project was the multiple award-winning Steps for the Future program in 2000, which emerged out of a broad collaboration to tell stories by and about people living with and affected by HIV/AIDS in Southern Africa. Since then, STEPS has developed two core functions. On the one side, it has focused on producing big slates of professional documentary films that address global issues and attract international broadcast and awards. On the other side, STEPS is focused on the use of participatory media at community level, working with partner organizations. And this is the side we're interested in. This work includes facilitated community screenings of STEPS films to ignite conversations and training communities to produce their own media content and tell their own stories.
STEPS collaborates with 9 partner organizations in 7 Southern African countries, each with distinct advocacy backgrounds, primarily focusing on youth-related issues. These organizations work towards various causes such as reproductive health rights, HIV prevention, access to information, welfare of people with albinism, youth representation, and promoting youth talent and self-esteem for self-reliance. The partner organizations play a crucial role in the development and implementation of media advocacy campaigns. Their expertise, knowledge, and access to communities and stakeholders contribute to the effectiveness of these campaigns tailored to local contexts. Through its support and in collaboration with partner organizations, STEPS enabled community screenings have reached an audience of 3.5 to roughly 4 million people. Additionally, STEPS has trained over 5,000 community facilitators over the last 2 decades. The learning cycle, a crucial tool in the STEPS methodology, trains facilitators to guide their audience through 4 stages: the direct experience of watching the film, reflection on the film, linking the film to personal lives, and lastly, considering actions for change. During the COVID-19 pandemic, STEPS and its regional network partners adapted to online work. An online needs assessment revealed an increase in gender-based violence, prompting the launch of the Conversations with Men Gender program. This program aimed to use film as a tool for social change, to challenge prevailing social norms and promote gender equality. The program focused on engaging men and boys as change agents to address and prevent gender-based violence. In the first phase, a senior facilitators task team was formed to curate short films, which with gender themes from existing STEPS documentary films. Guiding questions were then developed to lead discussions based on the selected clips. The task team then organized a series of 6 training webinar sessions with male audiences from the 7 Southern African countries, where the clips were screened and online discussions on gender issues were conducted. Participants then replicated the online webinar screenings in their respective countries and communities. It is important to note here that STEPS videos are never didactic. They are grounded in telling local stories and cannot be defined as educational videos or NGO message films. In the second phase of the Conversations with Men Gender program, another series of training webinars were held that included mixed gender participants. These trained film facilitators were also tasked with conducting community film screenings in their respective countries. The final phase involved the training of all participants to use cell phones to document significant change stories related to the impact of the gender program. Through the collection of change stories, the program sought to provide evidence of the effectiveness of using film as a tool for social change and gender transformation in the region.
This brings us to the activities and the methodologies employed to inform this research. We were very lucky to obtain funding to enable face-to-face site visits with most of the partner organizations. Prior to the research trip, documentation and media were collected from STEPS, and then Booker collected locally produced change videos from the partner organizations during his visits.
The data collection site visits were conducted between March and April 2023. One-day interactive workshops were held with facilitators and program coordinators directly involved in the Conversations with Men program to foster exploration and discussion while collecting data. The workshops included reflective writing exercises and focus group discussions. Semi-structured interviews were also conducted with key informants from each partner organization.
So, in the aftermath of all this primary research, our key findings can be summarized as the following. 1, relationships operate as a multi-directional web. 2, project activities are unique to each partner organization. 3, screening sparked engaged conversations. 4, video making shifted from STEPS to partner organizations. 5, in regards to the videos themselves, the more local they were, the bigger their impact on igniting conversation. And lastly, numerous change stories were recounted, often in great detail. And so now we will expand on each of these key findings. Quite strikingly, the complex STEPS-initiated network was not just two-way between STEPS and its partner organizations, but multi-directional across all spheres. What we found seems best described as a web of relationships with myriad connections. As the initiator and the organization through which funding moves to the partner organizations, STEPS is at the center of this web. Relationships radiate out from the center to partner organizations, their facilitators, and in turn the communities with which they engage. However, most importantly, in terms of this presentation, within this web, dynamic interaction and influences move in many different directions, outwards and inwards, across various spheres, and between various role players. The physical location of STEPS, the initiating organization, is in South Africa, which locates it geographically and in other ways within this web of relationships and not as an outsider organization. Additionally, the long-standing relationships within this web enhance the patterns of reciprocity and equity. While the Gender Conversations with Men project took place under one umbrella, the project activities and the way they were implemented were unique to each partner organization. For example, in Chimoni, Zimbabwe, the Tsiro organization chose to implement 36 screenings in 22 of their wards to reach over 600 young people, most of whom were girls. Whereas in Masvingo, Zimbabwe, the My Age organization chose to focus on one cohort of young men over an extended period with multiple engagements. This suggests the power of partner organizations in conversations with the initiating organization, STEPS, to create their own specific implementation that responded best to their local situation.
Facilitators unanimously reported that the film screenings catalyzed, engaged, and sometimes emotionally charged conversations on a wide variety of issues. These included gender-based violence, gender roles, the tensions between traditional and contemporary norms and values, and sexual harassment. Facilitators also noted that these conversations were otherwise not happening whether it was in the home or among his peers. Facilitators revealed that they could not predict how audiences would react or what issues would come to the fore in a post screening discussion, but that through their training, they understood their role to be able to enable conversation about issues in an atmosphere of respect and to ensure different views could be expressed. Often noted was the point that there was far more success with community engagement using film as a tool in this way than they had seen with more traditional top down media campaigns with one way didactic mass messaging. Video making shifted from steps to partner organizations and their community participants over the Conversations with Men project. By phase 3, the emphasis was on training community participants in video skills to make their own change stories using cell phone technology. There is great power in being able to represent yourself and your community and to be behind the camera rather than simply in front of it. These opportunities for video training and making are particularly appealing to the youth. Therefore, there was a strong uptake as these were of value to participants. Another key theme that emerged was that the more local the video, the bigger its impact on catalyzing animated conversations after screening. There was value seen in recognizing people, places, and issues and being able to identify with authentic situations. One facilitator in particular expressed his personal shift from initially dismissing unprofessional videos to fully embracing them based on their potential for impact and power within the local target audience. Many spoke about the ease of sharing cell phone videos on their phones, even as a way to reach other young people in areas that are otherwise living in physically isolated places. Facilitators recounted numerous change stories at a personal level as well as at community participant level, often to a surprisingly deep level in both attitudes and behavior. Male facilitators were particularly affected and reported changing the way they interacted with and viewed women, to changing the roles and responsibilities they took on within their own households. An exercise that seemed particularly effective was when participants had to record themselves doing an activity outside of their traditional gender role. Equally, however, young men expressed a feeling of exclusion for many socio-economic programs that give preference to women and girls. They also feel the societal pressure and burden to provide and be successful.
We would now like to share a very short example of a change video from the Uganda partner Refugee Law Project called I Dare You to Help Your Wife to Do Housework.
Those days, or according to our culture, we the Acholi, in the past, if you get married, people think that you should not do any housework at home. And for example, cooking, mopping, washing of clothing. Like for me, I say now, sometimes you say, I need to, if they say, you man, when are you getting married? Like for us actually, they said, when are you going to get someone to come and help you wash your clothing? Meaning you are getting a wife to come and wash your clothing. And if your fellows see you again washing clothing, they may think that your woman has bewitched you. That is why most of our men, most of our guys from our culture, like the Acholi, they dodge doing this kind of work because they want to maintain their what we call manhood or husbandhood. They want to maintain their honor. They think that if they're doing this kind of work, their friend may describe them as women because that their wife has already handled them and captured their mind or bewitched them, meaning they are not now men. They say instead of marrying a woman has married you. Therefore, that is why they are not doing those kind of works. But I'm urging all the men around, it is our responsibility. We need to divide this work. Sometimes these women can also get tired. We need to help them. We need to do this housework together.
In conclusion, I will return to our argument, now supported by our findings in a number of meaningful ways. Firstly, to our point that the Conversations with Men project is a co-creative one. Within the overall relationship web, project implementation was co-developed uniquely at each site based on equitable multi-directional power dynamics, thus satisfying the first two criteria of equal power relations and a starting point that was open to an unknown final product to be co-created. The additional criteria of reciprocity is illustrated in the mutual benefits to both the initiating organization and the partner organizations through the gender program. Reciprocity was also a key element at a more individual level in terms of the video making component. Participants were eager to be involved as the video training and making were genuinely valuable to them. Next to our argument that the co-creative process of Conversations with Men enabled high levels of ownership at local level, as well as a high impact on attitude and behavior change. Co-creation enabled partner organizations to drive and implement their projects. The long-term relationships within the web are also testament to the sustained commitment of all partners. As for the questions of impact, the co-created project activities, including the facilitated screenings and the video making, resulted in remarkable change stories from both facilitators and other community participants at both attitude and behavior levels. And now I would like to conclude by thanking you for listening to our presentation.